Welcome to another edition of the Dental Today podcast. Thank you for stopping by. This is brought to you by Lab Media TV. My name is Hezekiah Morales, and here we go. Remember to follow us on social media at Lab Media TV. Frankie Acosta has been a dental technician since 1986. He has owned and operated 3 full-service laboratories. At AA Dental Design, he has built a powerhouse focused on processing digital and conventionally impressed restorations by utilizing the Cerec InLab to its fullest. Every restoration is processed with the Cerec InLab system, which has created his motto, all Cerec, all the time. He is a software beta tester and certified advanced trainer for Sirona and Patterson Dental. He has founded and moderates CerecOnDemand.com, which is a Cerec educational site for all professionals in the dental field. He has also established the Cerec On Demand Educational Center in California, where he is a basic, intermediate, and advanced trainer for the Cerec InLab and the Cerec chairside systems.
Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Frank Acosta. Frank, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to finally be able to have you here. We've been going back and forth trying to nail down a time, and it seems like it's always a crazy time, and especially these last 5 months. But we appreciate you coming on the show.
No, like I said, thank you very much for having me. I mean, we have been going back and forth. I think ever since Chicago, we said, hey, let's see when I can come on the show, and thank you again, for not forgetting about me. So
no, it's an honor having you here. We really appreciate you taking the time. We were very excited to finally meet you there in Chicago. We met so many great professionals that we only knew online, and then finally had the opportunity to meet up. And when we saw you there, it was great. We actually heard a little bit one of your keynotes, and it was great. Very exciting. So since February, a lot of things have changed.
Oh yeah, I mean, things have been a little crazy. It's kind of like I like to call it that. I don't like to use the movie, but I was watching Avenger, and the first thing I thought about was the day that they announced that they were shutting down. It was like if Thanos just kind of snapped his finger, and all of a sudden made the dental profession disappear for a little while, and then out of nowhere, somebody came. I don't know if it was Iron Man or who it was, but somebody came, snapped the fingers, and we've been swamped ever since. So I don't know what to tell you on that.
Pretty interesting turn of events.
Yeah, no, it has been. I would have never thought. I remember, my dad back in the day when I was younger, when I first started and stuff. He used to say to me, in our profession, people always will need teeth. So we will always work. We will always be, and for us to just get shut down the way we did. That was interesting. I would have never imagined that. So, hey, there's always a first for everything.
Right. And it's great that we have you on. And I always like to start with understanding a little bit of your background, where you got started. So I'm looking at a number, 1986. How did your journey begin?
Well, I might have started even a little bit earlier than that. I don't know. My dad, my parents immigrated from Cuba. And when they got to the United States and stuff, they knew a profession. When they first started, they actually worked at a factory, a Fuji factory and stuff. And so because not knowing the language and stuff like that, they didn't really want to get into the dental lab world. But one day, my mom, it was kind of funny. My dad, he used to actually, when he was in the factory, he would look at people and say, hey, that tooth in the front there, I can fix it. So he would actually make molds and make flippers for everybody and stuff like that. But so I remember being in the dental field. I mean, knowing about what my parents, did since as far as I can remember. But yeah, so when I was 16 years old, my dad gave me a car, and like I said, I thought I was just going to be driving around this car for free and do my thing and get to hang out, party, and do all this stuff. And the next words out of his mouth was, this thing needs to get paid. So he gave me a job at the laboratory, and my very first job, like any very good dental technician, he gave us 2 jobs, or he gave me 2 jobs. One of them was making models, and the other one was cutting the metal screws off of PFMs. And so he would mark it with a little red pencil all the way around, and he would give me this disc, And so, not to say that I'm old, but I am a little old, right? And there used to be a handpiece that had this little rubber wheel that would turn the handpiece. And so as you were cutting this metal off of, and you were scared because you were just looking at this disc, and the disc would break and hit you in the eyeball and stuff because you were supposed to be wearing glasses, but because I worked for my dad, that it is what it is, right? So it bothered me, and sometimes even the little rubber wheel would come off and just smack you in the face. So
Oh, wow.
that was my intro to dental the dental lab world.
Wow, when you were 16 years old. Wow.
Yeah, and
Wow.
I'll say my age. I'm about to turn 49.
Wow. Congratulations on that. That's amazing.
Yes.
Wow. So
Yeah.
so you start at 16. Obviously, the first job is the model room, right? That's what you do.
Yep.
And how did you know from that moment that this is what you were going to do, or
No.
when did this click? When did this
No.
click?
No, my dad was funny. My dad always, he would look at me, and one of the things he would say to me all the time is, stay in school, become a dentist. And so he was just like, you don't want to do this all your life, and you got to do this. And so I that's what I thought that my path was supposed to be. It was to go down. So when I graduated high school and stuff, I did a little bit of the college thing. To be honest with you, I would go to school, and then I go to the lab, and then I go back to school, and then go to the lab. Like I would have morning classes, or sometimes in the afternoon. I would just go back and forth. I was just community college, doing my thing. After about, I would say, 2 years, one day I was like, I have a profession. I was already learning how to stack porcelain, learning how to do dentures, learning how to do all these different things. And so I decided to just, leave school and just become full time. It was very interesting too, because my dad at the time, he didn't really want to have a full service laboratory anymore. And I kept telling him, Dad, let's open up a removables lab. And so, because he did it for a while and then he got rid of it. And I told him, I have so many people that call and ask us, do we do dentures? Do we do partials? Do we do relines? And so next door opened up, and I decided, okay, you know what? I'm just going to hire some people. And I started my own lab, right?
Wow.
Right next to my dad. And my dad kept looking at me going like, what are you doing? No. I'm just going to own this section right here. But, together we worked together. We became the very first full service laboratory at that time. And the rest was history, right? We created a big laboratory, but it was a conventional lab. It was analog. It was just a lot of cases coming in. It was kind of chaos when, like most laboratories, we know how to bring in work sometimes, but sometimes we're not business people, right? So we don't know how to control the whole thing. And so that's what I come across, throughout the years. My parents weren't business, they knew how to make teeth. That's what they knew how to do. But, to basically grow a business, I do a lot of traveling and stuff, and I go to a lot of laboratories, and it reminds me of that lab back in the day. It was a lot of fun, but at the same time, it was a little chaotic. Let's put it that way.
Pretty taxing
Oh,
on
yeah.
the body, on the mind.
Oh yeah. No, it was
Wow.
crazy. It was crazy. So
it was.
Go ahead.
So it was when you were in community college, when you 2 years into your community college career, that you decided, I'm a dental technician already.
Yep. Like I just figured, I just need to make some money, because my parents were always like this, right? Okay, you want to go to school? They would tell you, go to school. But if you want to go to school and you don't bring me straight A's, I'm not paying for that school. And so I definitely wasn't a straight A student. So I was spending a lot of money. So I'm like, oh hell no, I can't be doing this. So that's when I decided, hey, I'm just gonna make some money and start my life now. And that was that. Because again, when I first started, I thought that's, I was going to go to school, and they just brought me in and said, hey, just, this is good for now, but later, you should go to school. You should, graduate. And basically, my sisters were the same way. My parents brought them in, and they're all dental technicians, and they're all in this industry. So That's kind of how we all went down the same path.
Wow. So, that's pretty interesting. So it's a family affair.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a family affair.
Wow. And so you're second generation, or is there more in the lineage?
Yeah, so I'm second generation. My parents, they still, I'll get to this laboratory, later on, but yeah, they're still, sitting down at the bench and doing their things. My mom does a lot of numbers, but now this laboratory has a lot more family members. Let's put it that way. So, but I am second generation. Yeah.
Wow, second generation dental technician professional. That's
Yes.
amazing. That's pretty awesome. The influence of the parents and the surroundings, the nurture
Yes.
that certainly took you that direction. So coming from that background, that foundation where you didn't have computers and you didn't have scanners and you didn't have milling units and you didn't have all these things, an analog foundation. And now, I mean, we're going to get into the whole Cerec in just a moment, but how has that impacted your present success?
It's interesting, because a lot of people ask me that, right? And so, one of the things that happened to me, was, listen, us dental technicians, and I say us because I do listen, I do hear a lot of, family owned, dental technicians and dental laboratories that sort of, did the same thing that we did, right? All we knew how to do was just make teeth, work, and take a vacation by, maybe driving out to Vegas on a Friday night after work and coming back on Sunday to then go back to work. I mean, that's just I used to call it the lab life or the dental technician life. In my world, I did analog for many years. And in 2008, my dad was sitting at the bench and he had a heart attack. And when he had a heart attack sitting at the bench, it was about 10 o'clock in the morning. It was one of those crazy things. And I've said this story many times when I do lectures and stuff like that. My dad, he gets rushed off into the ambulance and goes to the hospital. And when we get to the hospital, we didn't really grow a business that would sustain itself if it wasn't for me, or if it wasn't for my dad, or if it wasn't for my mom or somebody in the family and stuff. So I remember my dad was, being, taken off into the surgery, and my mom looks at me and she's like, what are we going to do? And I looked at her and I said, no, he'll be fine. And she goes, no, the laboratory. Like, what are we going to do? Because, I mean, you think about it, you create this business that is more or less a job for yourself, right? A job that we want to say it's a business, but what it is, it's really a job that you created from 9 to 5, or from whatever time you start working to whatever time you go to the house or whatever. And so that's what we had. We had a laboratory that just didn't know how to run itself, or didn't have the people around us. Even though we had a lot of technicians, we kind of didn't know, because everything kind of went through. Because my dad was an old school, real old school, the kind that was like, I need to touch everything, right? It was kind of like, I don't want, there's no case that doesn't leave this laboratory that I didn't put my fingers on it, right?
Right.
And so that was his mentality. So a lot of the technicians that we had, they didn't even know how to finish a crown, because they never were asked to, right? It was kind of like, it just went through the lab and went through my hands, and then he was the final one that did it. So even me, I knew how to finish a crown. I knew how to finish, cases and stuff like that. But at the end, it was never the exact crown that he did. So that mentality and stuff, was something that was engraved in me for a very long time. And when something big happened in our life, I sat in his bench for a couple weeks before he was able to come back. And all I remember thinking to myself was, this can't be it. This can't be the way that the dental lab is supposed to be. We're not supposed to be sitting here, working while your dad, is in there, because we all know laboratories can grow in 8 years, but it can be lost in 2 weeks, just because you can't meet deadlines, or the doctors, it is what it is, right? But long story short, it's sort of like was the first steps to looking for something different. And when we talk about digital, that was one of the things that I sort of started looking at, because I remember, it was, CAD CAM first started hitting the market, or becoming a little bit more where we were aware of it, because the technician or the reps would come in. And I remember it was a Cerec rep, he rolled into my lab. My dad had just come back, and I thought he was going to change, right? I thought he was going to be like, hey man, I just got surgery. I got this, there's no more, I'm going to enjoy my life because I don't know. No, he went right back to making teeth. And I never forget, my rep came in and it was a Cerec rep, and he straight gave me a crown, and he's like, "Oh, check it out, look at this little box." It was a little box about this big, and he's like, "Look, this crown was made by this." And I remember going to my dad, and I looked at him and I said, "Hey, Dad, check this out. Look at this crown. This was made." And I'll never forget that day, because as all good dental technicians, we have our loops. We're looking down, and then all of a sudden he's kind of looks up like this, and I have the crown right in his face, and he looks up at it because his loops are like right here. So he's like this, because that's all we do, right? That's how we know how to look at people when we have loops.
Right.
And then I think he looked at it, and he says to me in Spanish, "Eso es una mierda," which basically means that's a piece of crap in Spanish, right? And so I looked at the guy. I was like, "Hey, it is what it is, But I always stuck to my head that hey, digital is going to come. Why not? Why can't we go digital? Why can't we mill something and then add our own beauty to it? 80% tool, 20% our hands, right? And I remember during that time, you would go on to different websites. I'm not going to mention them, by name and stuff like that, but different websites, and they were so anti digital, right? Because they were like, you got to lick your brushes, you got to do this, you got to do that. It's all customized, and I get it. I mean, look, I lived that life for a very long time. But, when things happen in your life, sometimes it sort of makes you think about what's going to happen in the future, right? And the next part of this story was very, very interesting. That same year after my dad got his operation, my mom ended up with breast cancer. Oh, wow. And so, the reality behind the story, right? At that point, I sort of thought to myself, like, I can't believe it. My parents are getting older, and to be honest with you, they're more worried about the laboratory and their future than sort of their own health, because they're just worried. They're like, what's going to happen to us? Why can't I do this, or why can't I do that? And again, our business is all about hands and I mean, the way that you stack porcelain and the way that you do this. And I have great conversations with a lot of high-end techs that I know, personally and stuff. And we do have this conversation all the time. But if something that big in our life sort of made me realize that I was done being a dental technician. And so I said, if this is the way our business is supposed to be, because we are the be all, right, of the whole entire thing, then I'm done, and I left, and I told my parents, listen, I think you should sell the laboratory. And again, they didn't create a business, but, somebody wanted to buy it. And what they wanted to do was, just buy basically buy the equipment, maybe hopefully buy some stuff, but you weren't selling the business. You were just going to get some money for the stuff that you had in there. And that was that. That wasn't a business. And, well, long story short, I took a little break. I moved, basically I went home and just decided what I was going to do. And I couldn't believe what my next choice was, right? Because my next choice was I bought an in-lab system. And the goal was to be a couple minutes away from my house, right? So I rented out this little one place, and I bought a milling system, and I'll never forget. It was in 2010. And I looked at myself and I was like, I'm only going to have I dropped you. I'm only going to have a couple doctors, and I'm just going to make teeth for them, and that's it, and I'm going to mill it, and I'm not going to stack porcelain. I'm just going to mill it, put some anatomy to it, do some stuff, and then just charge, $110 for it, stain and glaze out the door, and that's what created the whole digital flow for me at that point,
Wow.
And that was that.
Wow.
The rest is history, but I'm about to tell you that history.
You're about to tell me that history now. Absolutely. So, wow, it's very impactful how you are sharing the story, because you have such a energetic spirit to you, but this is definitely not a simple conversation to have.
No.
You're looking at your father deteriorate at the bench, and then shortly after, your mother's health is in question as well.
Yep.
What was going through your mind were you married? Did you have a family at this time?
Yeah. So at that time, I was actually divorced, right? Because that's the other part of the dental lab, right? If your wife is not in the business, she kind of doesn't understand the hours that you work and stuff like that. So At the time, I had just gotten a divorce, so I actually had custody of my kids, at the time and stuff, and so I lived, 5 minutes away from my laboratory, so I needed to be able to make time with them and stuff. And it was just a different time in my life at that time, right? When I started up that business, I didn't really know what direction it was going to go, but it was supposed to be simple. It was supposed to be, I'm going to scan something, make a crown, stay in place, and out the door and make some money. And at least I was able to, enjoy my two little ones, and that was that, But yeah, it was a different time of my life, and sometimes, like I said, something big has to happen for you to sort of stop and look around. And then when you look around, that's when you realize that there is something different out there, And so that's how I was at that moment. Yeah.
Wow, very, very interesting. So your first choice was, I'm going to go get a Cerec unit, and I'm going to...
At the time, it was an in-lab unit.
An in-lab unit, and I'm going to figure this thing out.
Yeah. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make crowns with it. Everybody's bashing on it, Everybody's saying that it's a piece of crap, this and that. And I just kind of took it and said, yeah, at the end, it's a tool. And, and so I looked at it was, let me see how far I can get with the crown, and then let me see what I can do with it after it comes out. And if I can do something with it, then it should work out. I don't want to cut metal. I don't want to add porcelain. I don't want to do none of that crap. I did it for way too many years. So it was what it was.
So from the moment that you started with that small room, in that small room with that one machine, with the idea of just servicing a few doctors, and now we have Cerec on Demand. You're a keynote speaker. You're speaking all over the country. You're having conversations with people all over the world and mentoring. Not only having conversations, but mentoring so many different dental professionals. Not only dental technicians, but also doctors and so many different professionals at the dental industry, in the dental arena. What has that journey been like from that first day when you turned on the switch to right now that you're on the Dental Today podcast?
Well, I mean, that's a good one, because it has been a fun ride, right? When I first bought mine, again, I had a certain idea, and then my parents, they got to that my mom went through whatever she had to go through and stuff like that. And I remember, so they basically sold their lab, it more or less just got bought up by pieces, and it wasn't really something that they got, oh, look, I'm buying it, and somebody took it over. Everybody that was calling just wanted pieces of it, right? Well, as I was kind of doing my thing, so I basically started hearing about Cerec, and I started reading. Again, you went online and you started hearing about Cerec and how Cerec doctors are trying to take laboratories out of business and all this stuff. And it was just all this weird stuff, right? I would go, since I bought an in-lab, it sort of was my first journey into the whole Sirona world at the time, right? And so, just like every other laboratory, you thought that Cerec was the devil, because you thought to yourself, to say the truth. I mean, it is what it is, right? I used to think, because the problem was that you would walk into a Cerec doctor's office and you would ask the Cerec doctor, hey, I'm so-and-so, I have an in-lab system. Let me do the cases that you don't want to do. And their main response was, no, I don't need a laboratory because I have a mill. I got this, I got that. So it sort of started in my head, started questioning myself, like, I think I love the whole flow of being able to scan something, being able to receive something, and then being able to mill it, where I don't have to sit there and do models. I don't have to do this, that. And so I loved it. But I didn't really understand how to really, connect with those doctors, right? And I didn't know how to get past the front door. Let's put it that way. Like back in the day, you would create this beautiful model with all these beautiful crowns, and you'd knock on the door, you'd sit down, the front office girl would look at you, yes, and then you would say, I want to talk to the doctor because I want to, I'm a dental technician, or I own a dental laboratory. Next thing you know, they're like, yeah, sit down, and the doctor maybe comes out, maybe, and he takes you into a room, and he looks at your case, and he's like, oh, that's very nice, so how much is this? And you're like, oh, $200. And then all of a sudden he's all, well, I'm doing it for $100. I mean, my laboratory does it for $100. So then you look at them, done deal, right? You're like, I'll do it for 99. But I joke about that, but it is kind of like a reality that we face as dental laboratories back in the day. People would just be trying to get an account for $1 less or whatever. And again, I get it. Listen, at the end, we're all trying to survive and stuff. And so, I always hear a lot of people complain about it and all this stuff, but it was a reality what you saw out there. And so what I sort of wanted to do was I wanted to talk to these doctors, but not in that way, right? What I wanted to do was I wanted to go in there and I wanted to tell them that because they were digital, I was digital. And because they understood the workflow, my laboratory would understand their workflow, and I'm just here for them, right? And so I didn't know how to really do that. Well, long story short, I found out a good friend of mine, Dr. Daniel Vasquez, he used to be one of our clients from way back when. And I heard that, he had bought a Cerec in one of the study clubs that we were in. And they were saying that he really knew how to use his Cerec. So one day I said, I'm gonna go visit him. And I remember showing up to his office, right? And I walked in and he was just like, yeah, come on back, And so he's taking me through his office and he stops and he shows me his mill. And then he's like, look, I make these crowns and I'm the man and I'm awesome. And I, I'm a Cerec doctor. And it was awesome to see the enthusiasm that he had. But my question wasn't so much his enthusiasm. My question kind of was, okay, how do we work together, right? And so I asked him, and he said to me, he straight looked at me and he said to me, the problem is that we don't speak the same language. And I'll never forget those words because I didn't really understand. I was like, wait a second, just because I'm Cuban doesn't mean I don't know how to speak Spanish. And he's Mexican, right? So I'm like, so I kind of tell him, I'm like, hey, bro, we speak the same. No, he's all, Frank, you don't understand. He's all, the Cerec doctor is in their own little world because they're making a commitment towards a digital workflow. And I said, and I looked at him and I was like, okay, so what does that mean for me? And he goes, okay, I'm going to tell you this. He's all, you see this patient that I have right here? I'm going to scan the patient. And once I scan the patient, I'm going to Cerec connect it to you. And it was right when Cerec Connect first came out. It was like 2000, maybe like 2011, 2012. And he said to me, I'm going to Cerec connect it to you. And he goes, and what I want is my contacts to be, speckles of green and my occlusion to be a light blue. And at that moment, I knew what he said. If I wasn't an in-lab user, I would have no idea what the hell he was saying. Because let's say if I own 3Shape or if I own some other system, I would be like, okay, whatever. Yeah, just send it to me. I would probably ask him, so what do you want the spacer to be on the contacts or something, And he Cerec connected it to me. Once he Cerec connected it to me, I went back to the laboratory. I downloaded the case. I milled it. I just did the same thing, but just did it modelers. And when I milled it out, I remember crystallizing it. And I remember opening up the little box that, we put our teeth in, right? And I opened it up. And after I glazed, I looked at it, I put it in there, I closed the box, I opened it. I didn't really know what to do because it was the very first case that I had ever gotten that I didn't make a model, right? And so one of the things that I did notice too was that I did the case in like under an hour, right? And so I got excited. I went back to the doctor's office, I gave him the crown, and I go, here you go. And he's like, he kind of looks at me, he's like, what are you doing here? And I go, no, I finished the crown, so here it is, And I remember him looking at me and going, wait, don't all you labs ask for 2 weeks? He goes, so I told the patient to come back in 2 weeks. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I left, right? And when I left, he called, I get a text from him, and he shows me the x-ray, and he shows me a picture of the crown. And at the bottom, he says, now we speak the same language, right? Wow. And that was it for me right there, man. I made it my quest, while every laboratory out there was saying that they hate Cerec. I basically put that, and that's where all Cerec all the time comes from, right? I would just basically, and Cerec on Demand sort of grew from that as well. I opened up right next to my laboratory. I rented this one section, and all I did was just teach Cerec doctors how to use their Cerec, and that was the goal, and that's where Cerec on Demand came from. And And to even go even further with that, there was a doctor that came into one of our first courses, and I'll never forget. And so my plan was, I'm going to teach these doctors, and I charged them. I actually charged them, a pretty good penny, so that they would learn. So I would call Patterson branches, and I would say, hey, send me your doctors that are pissed off, right? I would not just say any bad words or anything. Sorry, that were upset, not pissed. Sorry.
That were upset.
That they were upset, right? I know it's a family show, bro. I got you. And so all the reps would send me their doctors, and they would say, hey, sign up for this course. He's going to teach you, right? He's just going to teach you how to stain, glaze. He's going to teach you how to use the software, all this stuff. And so my very first course, I think it sold out in like a week or something like that.
Wow.
And so I had like about 12 doctors in this particular room here. It's a little different now than what it was back then. It was just a bunch of tables. Now, if you see this room, there's computers, and then there's all this stuff. And I have an operatory now in here for education. I got a CT scanner and everything. But I'll never forget that very first class, because as I'm showing them how to use their Cerec to the fullest, right? I'm showing them how to do single units. I'm showing them how to do bridges. I'm showing them how to do like 6-unit cases, like all this stuff. And the last case that I showed them was a 6-unit anterior case. And we were designing it, and we were doing all these things, right? And so the whole room, all you hear is click, 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 because the mouse was just click, 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 click. And this guy sitting in the back row gets frustrated, and he basically takes his mouse and he just chucks it. And he's like, and he goes, you know what? And he goes, you know what? Bottom line is, I didn't sign up to be a dental technician. I just wanted to learn how to do a single unit and an inlay. When I get cases like this, I'm just going to send it to you. And I'm like, I remember sitting here looking at him and going, oh, it is on now, because I just found out the secret sauce, right? I just found out. We educate them. We educate them how to be dental technicians, how to be better, at what they do. And Cerec On Demand sort of grew from there.
Wow.
We went. I brought in Jay Black from Florida. I told him, hey, bro, let's work together. Let's see, how we can grow this, and it just kept going. But the reality behind it was that I didn't realize that I was really starting to compete in the Cerec Connect world. I mean, to a point.
Wow.
Yeah, to a point where I was starting to get a lot of Cerec Connects, and one day this German guy comes knocking on my door, and he shows up to my lab, and he's like, I look at him, and he's looking at me, and he's looking around the laboratory, and the laboratory was like a dump, it was really small and no big deal, right? And his next words, I'll never forget. He looks and he's all, this is AA Dental Design? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, do you know that you're competing against Glidewell when it comes to receiving Cerec Connects? And I was like, really? And at that time, wow, I thought it was cool, right? Because I was like, that is so cool, because Cerec Connect has just hit the market, so nobody really knew what to do with it and stuff. And at the end, he was basically, his name was Norbert Ulmer, and he basically was the one who brought InLab to the United States. And when he came to visit me, all he said to me was, would you be willing to educate what you do? And I said, are you saying to doctors? And he's like, no, to laboratories. And I said, I all I thought about was my parents at that moment, right? I kind of thought to myself, if my parents didn't know digital, who would teach them, or who would take them to this level, right? And I remember he took me out to PF Chang's. We were sitting there, and I looked at him, and I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's just, I'll use my place. We'll start educating. There was a guy named Mike Suris that was also doing a very similar thing. That's how InLab On Demand then grew. Then we started just educating labs. We started educating doctors. We started doing all this stuff. And the more I educated, the more my laboratory grew in the Cerec world. So where we stand today, I mean, to be honest with you, we receive about 500 to 600 Cerec Connects a month. We only do business with digital doctors. We don't do business with analog because we don't play well with them. When we receive a case that's analog, we have a little table about this big that we pour up models on. You know what I mean? There's no Pindex machine. There's nothing. So I have a lot of people that come and visit me from all over the world, and to be honest with you, it's a very interesting look when they walk in and they kind of see all the pans, and they're all empty with just a lab slip on it. You know,
Right.
printers going, and yeah, we just don't go analog. To be honest with you, a lot of people say, back in the day, I remember my dad, when he used to have dental lab owners come into the laboratory. I remember he used to cover up his pans, right? Because, he would just turn it around. Hey, so what do you want? I mean, like, why are you here? And, and I remember when Norbert asked me that question, right? I remember thinking to myself, if I teach everybody, right, is that going to be a bad thing, right? Because right now I'm the king of the hill, right? Because I got this ugly looking laboratory that basically had the lights were horrible. We had a little section in the back at that time. And all I thought to myself was, if we can change the industry, right, we'll change everything. And if we don't educate what the future looks like, they're all going to be just sitting behind the bench and sort of fighting, the Cerec or the digital flow. And honestly, it was one of the greatest things I've ever done. Not just because we've grown so much and stuff like that, but because, to be honest with you, I look at my parents. My mom, she fought cancer, and she takes vacations now, and she knows now what business is about. And so and if it wasn't for digital, I don't know if I would have done that. I don't know if this is the path that I would have taken.
Wow. Digital certainly changed your world.
Yeah.
The open-mindedness of a new world view through Cerec changed your world. How amazing is that? So Cerec On Demand is certainly the focus of a lot of doctors and a lot of laboratories right now. That's what you've been pouring a lot of your knowledge, your energy, your vision into it. You have people from literally all over the world tuning in and learning and beginning their journey or expounding on their journey, learning new horizons. That's truly amazing. Did you ever think that your reach or your impact was going to be as extensive as it has been developing in the last couple of years?
No, I didn't. I didn't think that we would get to this place, right? I thought to myself, I just want to have a laboratory that I would be able to just be what I wanted, and what I wanted was digital. And that's what I thought that the path was going to take. And now all of a sudden, when you say, people, it's funny when I do courses, people show up from New Zealand, now we're doing online courses and stuff like that. And so, this has really caught me by surprise that at the end, we were going to help so many laboratories. We were going to help so many doctors, and we were going to help our industry sort of move on, and sort of bring down the barriers of, I need to always use my hands. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you don't, just because you're using, technology, it's a tool, just the same way a brush would be, just the same way a spatula would be. It's all a tool. You can mill something or print something and make it your own if you wanted to. It's just how you create your own workflows. And so for us, we created those workflows and we succeeded behind our workflows. And so with everybody jumping on and like you said, coming from different parts of the world and stuff like that, it was definitely a blessing. And to be honest with you, I think about it. I'm like, wow, I can't believe it, because I'm Frankie and I'm a dental tech, and that's what I am, and that's what I've always been. So it is what it is. It's been cool and definitely a very fun ride.
How amazing!
Go ahead.
How amazing that your name is going to certainly be part of history when it comes to the evolution of this in this industry. In this industry, how amazing! Now you have been, again, as we mentioned, you've been pouring a lot of your energy, a lot of your wisdom, a lot of your knowledge, and a lot of your passion into developing this platform where people can come from all over the world, learn and improve on their skills, improve their life, obviously through understanding different methodologies, concepts, principles, all these things. Yeah. But what do you have something in store? Are you working on something? What's coming up in the future? Because after a year like 2020, we are definitely expecting the unexpected now.
Yeah, we are. Well, it's funny, right? When we ask ourselves, where we're at today, I started with Cerec and InLab and Sirona mainly because at that time it was the only system that really was the full circle, right? It started digital from doctors, and then it went to the laboratory, and then we would be digitizing it, then it went back to the doctor, and it was just a workflow that no other company had, and so for me, a lot of people would come and or maybe email me or ask me and say, why is it that you pick InLab when 3Shape is better or ExoCAD is better and stuff like that? I own 3Shape. I have 3Shape. I have a lot of other systems. I don't have ExoCAD, but I do have other systems out there. And so when we ask that question, where we want to go, I believe that in the past couple of years, what you've noticed is that it's kind of like Apple, right? Back in the day, Apple was sort of like this had the Apple phone, and then you had the Apple, and then you had this. But eventually, Apple had to come out with publisher to work on Apple, right? And so what I think I saw was in the past couple of years that everything is just kind of opening up more, right? And so those workflows now are becoming even a lot easier. So if you ask me what's next, is sort of something that we're already working on as we stand today. So our laboratory about 2 years ago, we only did business with Cerec doctors. We didn't do business with iTero doctors. We didn't do business with 3Shape, CareStream, all that stuff. So about 2 years ago, we announced that maybe it might be even 2 years and a half, maybe a little bit more. But we announced that we were opening up our doors to other systems, and we did. And we get some 3Shape now. We get trios. We get a lot of stuff, but the workflow is still the same. It doesn't matter as long as it comes in digital. We will accept it, and then we just go down our path that we use. Whether we use 3Shape, whether we use InLab, whether we use whatever it is that Blue Sky Bio, we use a lot. And so when it comes down to it, our education, believe it or not, is starting to also feel the push. And we're really thinking about our next move. And our next move, which was before COVID, we were going to start doing ExoCAD courses, 3Shape courses.
Wow.
So more or less just open up our laboratory, because now that we have doctors that have trios and have, it's sort of the same concept. Okay, listen, because I'll get a phone call and that phone call will say something like, hey, I need a digital denture, but I only have an OmniCam, but I just got the new trios. Can I scan it with that? Or I have iTero. Can I do that? And, for me as a laboratory, it doesn't matter. I just want the digital scan. That's all I want. And so I want to be able to open up those doors. And so one of the things that happened before the COVID was we created, this year, we created something called AA Dental Academy. So if you go onto our website on aadentaldesign.com, you're going to see on the top section where it says Academy now. And so that Academy will basically show all the courses that are going to be moving forward. So we're gonna basically come out with a course called Cerec meets ExoCAD, right?
Wow.
And so it's going to be the flow. How do you work with Cerec and then use ExoCAD? And and I think that the next step is going to be if you're a trios doctor, how do you 3Shape comes in, and this is the workflow. If I have a planned prime scan, a planned mecha, how does that work throughout the whole thing? Because again, now all the avenues sort of go with different equipment, right? I can basically get a case from a prime scan doctor and then design it in ExoCAD and mill it with my MCX 5. and that's sort of, again, the tools help the workflow. And all you really need to know is all the connections. And that is going to be next for us. We do a lot of courses right now, the power of in-lab, which now we're also online. So a lot of our courses now, we have them here. But then if you want to join us online, we actually hired one of the top guys that I know, at least, in the dental. His name is Jonathan Ayala. He comes in, and so he just broadcasts the course live. And so I interact with everybody. So like when we have the software courses, we just send them all the cases that we're going to be working live, and we work at the same time with them, right? So it's like if they were here, right? They can interact with us. We don't open it up to 100 people. We open it up to 10 people. And then if they want to work from home, they're able to work here if they want to come here. So it's kind of like they're here, but they're not. And these people are over there. And so it's like if you're taking the course live.
It's a digital workflow.
Yeah, I'm sorry?
It's a digital workflow.
Yeah, there you go. It's a digital workflow, yes. And it's kind of funny because so we just did the power of all on 4, or the all on X as we call it. And then we also did the power of digital dentures. And so what we did was we pre-milled all the materials and we shipped it out to everybody, right? We shipped it out so that while we were working here, they were working at home. And so Jonathan has a bunch of cameras set up in the whole entire place. So that way, if you're staining something, they can see it, and then they do it. And then when we want to talk to them, we walk up to this one camera, right? We smile. Hey, so show me your case. They'll show the case. So it's very, very, very interesting, interactive, and I'm very excited to all the different courses that we're going to have. Eventually we have right now maybe about 10 courses that we do, and we're probably going to go all the way up to 20. And it's basically how the courses are based upon how our laboratory runs. We're about 20 employees now, or 20 technicians strong now, all together. Not all technicians. We have, our stuff, but how we do things here is what we will teach everybody. And whether you're a dental lab or a dentist, it doesn't matter to us.
Wow, that is truly amazing, ladies and gentlemen. All the links for those of you that are watching on YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast, all the links are going to be included in the description of this podcast or this video if you're watching on YouTube. So no worries. You can find Mr. Frank Acosta on these links. We're going to have the links to the Academy, everything there. Frank, it has certainly been quite the journey for you, and condensing that into under an hour has been amazing. We thank you so much for being generous with your time, sharing your stories, sharing your experiences, and we hope to have you soon.
Oh, no, hey,
have you back soon.
Yeah, exactly. But, like I said, whenever, just reach out and I'm here, So, again, we're coordinated, but definitely we'll see if we can't do this again. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I hope to see you soon, hopefully in Chicago.
Hopefully in Chicago. Let's hope so. Again, thank you so much for accepting the invitation. It has been a pleasure and honor speaking with one of the pioneers of digital. And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Frank Acosta has been with us today. Go follow his page, connect with him, and we will see you on the next episode of the Dental Today podcast. Till next time.
Thank you.